Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In this channel, I'm covering communication skills for you to level up your way with words, become much more articulate. In today's episode, we're diving into the world of public speaking and social skills, and I'm going to be introducing a concept that you most likely have never heard of before. The concept that you did hear of before, most likely, is known as resting bitch face. And this concept is known as a person who looks very mean. Do you know someone like that? Where you told this person, hey, we've gotten to know each other after a long period of time, but you want to know something? When I first met you, I thought you were going to be mean. And this other person, who is so sweet once you have gotten to know them, asks you, why did you think I was going to be mean? And then you respond back, because you looked mean. Someone's face influences our perception. This is a very common phrase, resting bitch face. But you know what's not as common? Resting bored face. There was this one time when I was asked to give this speech in this very informal graduation. There was this 15-year-old named Anil who had a lot of confidence issues. So he basically went through this boot camp with this public speaker. And once he successfully completed the program, he was going to have a graduation, and I was called upon to be the speaker. In the event, Anil's family came, friends came, the host came, the host's friends came. It ended up being pretty packed. So I was excited. And during my speech, I had a couple of points that were targeted towards Anil. I wanted him to feel involved in my talk. As I was giving the presentation, I noticed from the very beginning that Anil, he looked very bored. He had these glasses, he was very scrawny, and he was holding himself like this in a slouched way, like. And in the beginning, I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I mean, the speech hasn't even started yet. That's why he looked so bored. As more time went on by, I noticed that the different members in the audience were getting hyped up. You know, this was the joking part of the talk. And Anil was like, and I'm talking to him. A lot of the speech is directed right towards him. And when I saw him looking bored like that, where at that point, that's never happened to me. As a matter of fact, I've noticed the exact opposite happen to me up until that point when I was giving speeches. I normally noticed that the audience members were very engaging. They were smiling. They were very enthusiastic. It's like they wanted me to win. But Anil, this 15-year-old, didn't seem like he cared if I won. He looked so freaking bored. And around the middle of the talk, it started to get to my head, and I finished the talk, but I didn't do it with as much enthusiasm as I felt like I could have done it with. Once the speech was done, different individuals were coming up and saying, great talk. And one of those individuals was Anil. He came to me and he said, hey, Arman, thanks very much for speaking at my event. And this time, he didn't look bored. So I started to get curious. Why was he looking like that? And what happened? What I noticed from that moment was, I mean, most likely he was tired because he had to give a talk as well. The whole event was targeted around him. So when he sat down, I'm pretty sure he was just relaxing. So I overthought that. But the main idea still held true. He looked bored, and it was as though someone was sapping my energy. And that's when I realized people have told me that around the 7th grade was when I first heard it, that I look mean when I'm not speaking. My regular face is like, and apparently for a while I looked unapproachable, and I was made aware of that. But that's when I thought, do I also look bored at times? Because if I'm talking to someone and I'm looking bored, am I going to sap their energy, sort of like Anil did with me that day? I didn't want to take the risk. So nowadays, anytime I'm speaking to someone, every now and then I try to observe them. I think this guy is making me want to talk to him more. Why? And I'll notice certain things about their face where they have that squinted eyes, they have that smile, they're gently nodding their head. Not like, because if you nod too fast, then it feels like you're rushing the speaker, but they're doing it in a very gentle sort of way. I notice these things. And I also notice speaking with people sort of like Anil. I recall that moment and bring it to the forefront of my mind. What was Anil doing that day that made me feel so off? And I start to realize, he had droopy eyes. He was yawning at times. He had a hunched body. And when I recall those moments and I associate a negative stigma to these attributes, I'm less likely to do it in my life. It's very difficult for me to just carry a mirror with me all the time and be like, am I looking bored? So a few fixes for the resting bored face that I've noticed is one, smirk. Smirking is a more subtle version of smiling because you may not always have the need to smile, but smirking, other people can't even notice that you're doing it, and you just unleash it and you toggle with it in a very micro sort of way where you allow yourself to feel good. I've noticed that is one of the fixes for the resting bored face. And the other fix is to just notice others. Be the sponge. See whose faces are pleasant and whose faces look really bored. And your brain will make an observation in regards to this, which recalibrates your behavior for the future. The main thing to understand is that just like resting bitch face is a thing, so is the resting bored face. And if you look too bored, then what's going to happen is that you are becoming the sleeping pill for someone else. It's like you are their NyQuil. You give them the NyQuil and now they're sleeping away. They're like, man, I don't want to chill with this guy again. He always puts me to sleep for some reason. They can't articulate why you're putting them to sleep, but hopefully after watching today's talk, you can. It's because you have a resting bored face, sort of like Anil. Fix it with a subtle smirk or just notice when things are off among others, and then your behavior will recalibrate and your face will look more pleasant in the future. If you enjoyed today's talk, go on and drop that like for me right on below. And thank you very much for joining the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel.